All right, today I wanted to go over a couple of things in preparation for our first days in the lab. So the first thing, I'm going to go over some tools that we have in the lab and their uses, storage, and all those things. Okay, the first thing, we've got different hammers in the lab. This is actually a 16 ounce. This would be more, it's got a flat head on it. It's a claw hammer, so it can remove nails. And the length of it and the size of it, as you can see, you can drive larger nails with this, but this hammer is actually more for a finish type hammer, for doing carpentry, finish carpentry. So it's got a flat face. You've got to hit the nail directly like that, or it'll bend. So if you hit it like this, it could bend a little bit. So that's our first finishers carpenters. This is getting more towards a framing hammer. I call this an all-purpose hammer. It's actually got a little magnet in it right there, so you can set the nail. It's not quite as curved as this one. It's got the end's a little bit flatter. It actually has a brace right here, as you can tell, like one piece. So if you miss, and say you're hitting this and you hit right there, it won't break the handle. These are pretty good hammers. They're ergonomically correct. The proper way to hold a hammer is to put your hand back here, put your thumb right there, and get a hold of it. And then as you hit, all your force will be transferred to the head of the hammer. What you don't want to do is get up like this right here. That's not the proper way to hold it. We're going to actually get back on top of the hammer and where you can get more force. So this is a multi-purpose hammer. This one here is a true framing hammer. So it's got a waffle head on it. It actually does have the magnet as well. And it's so we're going from 16 ounce, 20 ounce, and 23 ounce. And then you can see the length of this one too. So you can really kind of stay back and get a lot more force on this one. And all the weight is right on the head of the hammer. This is called a waffle head. And the purpose of this is where the other one you've got to hit directly on it. This one, if you hit it at a little bit of an angle, it will still drive the nail in. So this little waffle head catches the nail. We're going to do quite a bit of hammering here in the next few weeks. We've got some projects to build, so you'll get to use every one of these. So that details the hammers that we have in the lab. Next, we're going to start working with hand saws. These are the majority of the hand saws we have are these Irwin Marathons. This is a crosscut saw, and what that's saying is that so this lumber, this is made to cut across the grain. So we're going to be cutting in this direction. So let's go over a couple of things on the proper way to actually use a hand saw. So what you want to be able to do is you don't want to cut in the middle of the sawhorses. You want to cut where the part will kind of fall off here. We'll make a line. All right. This is a speed square. You'll be using those. So I just just drew a line perpendicular to my board, and then now this one's gonna cut. Let's see. That was pretty good. So it's cutting on the push stroke. So as I'm pushing down, that's when it's cutting. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing down. I'm not putting so much pressure on it to actually stall the saw out, but I'm pushing down fairly forcefully, and I'm letting the saw kind of do the work. If you try to force it, it's just like any playing golf or baseball or anything else. If you try to force the tool, it does not work as well. So I'm letting we spent the money on the saw, so let's let it work. So you're going to get to use those. If you're doing some cuts, it's a good idea to use these clamps. The way these clamps work is you push that, as I pull that right there, it allows the got the slide to move back and forth. Pull this right here, it'll tighten it up. These are very handy, quick release clamps. We have a lot of these in the lab. I prefer that y'all use them. It makes things a lot safer. So what you don't want to do is, just like when I was cutting that wood there, it was kind of moving around a little bit, and that's not really what we want to do. All right, we got those. Talked about the speed square a little bit. We're going to go way more in detail of that. We have some circular saws. This is actually a cordless version. We have quite a few of these. And depending on what I'm cutting, what I want to do first is I want to adjust and take the power out first. So we're going to disconnect the power. In this case, it's a battery-powered saw, so I took the battery out. This little piece right here lets the guide go up and down. So what I don't want to do is have it all the way down when I'm only cutting a little 3/4 inch piece of plywood. It's going to cut through that and then cut through into my sawhorse. So I adjust the saw base to whatever depth I want. So if I'm cutting a 2x4, I could adjust that out. That'd be roughly 1 3/4, 2 inches. Reset my thing so it's ready. We've got a safety right here, so you'll actually push that down and then pull the trigger, and that will activate the saw. There's a couple of lines here. This line right here, that's what I want to get right on my mark. So if I put it right on the mark right there, did you see that? That's where the blade is going to cut right directly on that. What I like to do is, if I'm cutting with using this circular saw, I can use this speed square as a guide, and this allows me to get a real nice flush perpendicular square cut if I just use this. Plus it allows me to gives me some better way to hold the 2x4 as well. All right, a couple of things we want to go over with that. If I'm cutting this 2x4 here, what I don't want to do is cut in the middle of these sawhorses. Because what's going to happen is, as I cut, this board's going to move down and it's going to pinch the blade. This little saw, it'll probably just stop that one. It'll just kind of bog out, and it'll overload the motor. We could burn up the motor, but these actually have some safety features and they will help with that, but it will stop the saw. This saw, which is a DeWalt, it's a lot more power, plugs in. You're probably not going to stop that. That saw will actually come back at you, and that's not what we want. So do not cut in the middle of the sawhorses. If I was going to cut, I would cut like I did over there, or I want to cut right here so it falls off the edge. And that way, as the piece I'm cutting, it's not being pinched or anything like that. It'll actually just allow it to cut on through, and that piece will drop off. So that explains a little bit about that. We will use some drills, cordless drills. A couple of features about this one. There's on all of this is a Porter cable, 20 volt. They actually work very well. Of course, there's a reverse on this side, forward on this side. Couple of features you need to remember. This right here on the top, that means it's in drill. I can't really stop that. It's just going to keep, so it's a direct thing. But if these numbers here, I can set it up where this thing has a clutch in it. And what that does, it allows me to not strip out the screw head. So as I'm putting the screw in, we'll go ahead and do one. I'll show you what it does. So if I put the screw in, this thing will catch. Hear that right there? And see, that actually just put that screw in just perfect. Well, might be a little bit proud, but that's pretty good. And then I can adjust it. So if that was 14, see how it's going in more? So it allows me to adjust. So if I was putting in a lot of screws in the same board and I want them to be flush, I can figure out whatever that setting should be, do a couple of them, and then set that, and it will adjust all those screws at the same height. So if I want them just to be just flush under the surface, then I can adjust that out and it'll be just perfect. If not, these are powerful enough they could just drive the screw all the way through, and that's not what we want. So, all right, there's a few things about our tools. Let's talk about where we store our tools. Okay, as you come in the lab, here's the door to the classroom. As you come in the lab, on your left, there's a big gang box, is what we call this. So all of our cordless tools we keep in here. And we try to keep a couple of batteries charged up, so as we swap them around, these actually hold charge pretty good, but we need to keep all those charged up. So we keep all of the Porter cable, the gray and black cordless tools in this box. Okay, the carpentry box. This is where we keep mainly nail guns, that type of stuff, for the carpentry. You don't really need those as yet. We have a couple of wooden toolboxes, which will be stored in the tool room. So one of them will have, you've got tape measures, a bunch of speed squares, one of them's full of hammers. So that'll kind of give you an idea where all that. This area over here is where we keep all the table saws, which is what this is, and the compound miter saws will stay in this area. As far as the tool room, ladder storage right outside the tool room for all those to go back. We have the large clamps. We got a thing here to keep all the clamps stored. And as you enter the tool room, in the center of the tool room, we've got a rack, and we can roll this out sometimes. We like to keep a lot of nails, hammers, all that stuff on here. We've got a few saws hung up on that. We have quite a few